Hello, buddy. Welcome back to Tin Man's Core Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm reacting my third and final Midnight Nightmare video for you guys today. And this was titled Four Disturbing True Hiking Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind where everyone knows each other and kids play outside until dusk.
Okay.
A few blocks from my house, there's a nature preserve that I love to explore. It's a peaceful place, filled with winding trails and the sounds of birds and rustling leaves. I often go there to clear my head and get some exercise.
Sounds like a place I wouldn't mind walking through, just to do what this person's talking about, clearing their head and getting a little exercise in. Wouldn't hurt everybody now and then.
But one Saturday morning, my usual routine took a terrifying turn. It was early fall, and the air was crisp and cool. I decided to go for a hike before starting my day. I grabbed my backpack, filled it with a few essentials, and headed out. The preserve was particularly beautiful that morning, the leaves beginning to change colors, creating a tapestry of red, orange, and yellow.
Oh, I would love to see that. I don't know what it is, but when you look at trees, when they turn their leaves to red, orange, and a little bit of yellow and brown, it looks calming and soothing to look at, if you ask me.
I set off on my favorite trail, enjoying the solitude and the sounds of nature. As I walked, I noticed something strange. Small, colorful objects were tied to the trees along the trail. At first, I thought they were decorations left over from a recent event, but as I got closer, I realized they were balloons, brightly colored balloons tied to the branches. It was odd, but I shrugged it off, thinking maybe someone had a birthday party here recently.
I wouldn't be shrugging it off. That's kind of weird. At first, I'd be probably thinking the same way, that it might have been an event or a birthday party was there recently, but you would have thought that all the people involved in that said event would have taken every decoration down so park rangers won't think that they're littering the woods.
I continued walking, but the sense of unease grew. The further I went, the more balloons I saw. They seemed to be leading me deeper into the woods, away from the main trail. I hesitated, but my curiosity got the better of me.
I wouldn't do it. It might be a trap. Just turn around and head back because you keep going in. That's what the person wants you to do, just so they can jump out and grab you, probably. I don't know if that's going to be the case here, so let's just continue on and see what happens, shall we?
I followed the trail of balloons, the forest growing denser and darker as I went. After a while, I came across something that made my blood run cold. Hanging from a tree was an old, faded clown costume. The fabric was torn and dirty, swaying slightly in the breeze.
Oh, heck no.
There was something deeply unsettling about it, the way it hung there, almost as if it were watching me.
That's probably a warning sign that there's somebody out there dressed up as a clown, probably planning on not only scaring you to death, but doing something else to you, and you just don't want to know what that would be. Hightail it back on the trail and get out of there quick before this clown shows himself.
My heart pounded in my chest, and I took a step back, considering turning around and heading home. But then I heard it, a faint, tinny sound, like music playing in the distance. It was the kind of music you'd hear at a carnival, cheerful and lively, but out of place in the quiet woods. My curiosity and fear battled within me, but I decided to investigate. I followed the sound, my steps cautious and my senses on high alert. The music grew louder as I neared a small clearing. My breath caught in my throat as I saw it, a person dressed as a clown, standing perfectly still in the center of the clearing. The clown was facing away from me, its colorful costume bright against the dull backdrop of the forest. It held a large, old-fashioned music box in its hands, the source of the eerie music. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. The clown didn't respond. It just stood there, motionless. I took a step closer, and the music abruptly stopped. The silence was deafening. My heart raced as the clown slowly turned to face me.
I don't even know why you even said hello and started walking towards the clown. This clown ain't no dude that will show up at birthday parties or other special events. If he's out in the woods by himself, dressed as a clown and had a whole old clown suit dangling in the trees, along with a bunch of balloons, then that guy's a mental nutcase. This is why people are afraid of clowns today, because of people like him. So this kid needs to turn around and don't look back and run.
Its painted smile and wide eyes were grotesque, frozen in an expression of eerie joy. "Are you lost?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The clown tilted its head, its smile seeming to grow wider. It started to move toward me, its steps slow and deliberate. Panic surged through me, and I turned and ran, crashing through the underbrush, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. I didn't dare look back. The image of the clown's face burned into my mind. I finally reached the main trail and stopped to catch my breath. I glanced back, half expecting to see the clown following me, but the path was empty. The balloons and the music were gone, as if they had never been there. I hurried back to the trailhead, my mind racing with fear and confusion. When I got home, I locked the doors and closed all the blinds, my heart still pounding. I debated whether to call the police, but what could I say? That I saw a creepy clown in the woods. It sounded ridiculous. Instead, I called my friend Tom, who lived nearby, and told him everything. "That's freaky," Tom said, his voice filled with concern. "Maybe it was some kind of prank?" "Maybe," I replied, though I wasn't convinced. The fear I felt was too real. Tom offered to go back to the preserve with me the next day, just to make sure everything was okay. Reluctantly, I agreed. I didn't want to go back, but I needed to know if what I saw was real or just my imagination. The next morning, we set out together, Tom trying to lighten the mood with jokes. As we approached the trail, my anxiety grew. The preserve looked normal, just as it always had. We walked the path I had taken, but there were no balloons, no clown costume, no music. Everything was as it should be. "Maybe you just needed some sleep," Tom said, trying to reassure me. "Yeah, maybe," I replied, though deep down, I knew what I saw was real. As we turned to leave, Tom paused. "Do you hear that?" he asked, his voice tense. I listened, and my blood ran cold. Faintly, in the distance, I heard the tinny sound of carnival music. We looked at each other, fear mirrored in Tom's eyes. Without a word, we turned and ran, not stopping until we were back at my house. We called the police and reported what we heard, but they found nothing unusual. No signs of a clown, no music, nothing. It was as if the forest had swallowed up the evidence. The officers assured us it was probably just a prank, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. Weeks passed, and the memory of that clown haunted me. I avoided the nature preserve, choosing instead to hike in more populated areas. But the fear never truly left. Every time I heard distant music or saw a balloon, my heart would race, and I'd be transported back to that moment in the woods.
That is very strange. One minute you see a bunch of balloons, a clown costume, and a clown playing carnival music on a old music box, and then all of a sudden he's gone. And then when you return with your friend, it's still nothing there. But then you hear both of you hear carnival music, but when you call the cops, they said it's nothing to worry about. I mean, they just don't have a care in the world. They probably just want to pass it up as a prank. But if they were there, they would have believed them boys. Makes you think, was there a clown that was murdered there during a party and he's still stuck there reliving his happy memories? But that would be scary to see a clown with a creepy smile on their face with their eyes wide looking at you. But I'm just glad that it did not follow him home and haunt him forever. But at least his friend got to hear the music instead of passing off as him losing it for not sleeping. But anyway, let's get to story number 2, shall we?
I've always loved hiking, especially during the fall when the leaves turn vibrant shades of red and gold. There's something about the crisp air and the beauty of nature that clears my mind and soothes my soul. The Appalachian Trail in Pennsylvania is one of my favorite spots, and last fall, I decided to spend a weekend hiking there alone. I thought it would be the perfect escape. Little did I know, it would turn into a nightmare that still haunts me to this day.
First of all, I haven't done it myself, but I would say to folks that if you want to do something to clear your mind, walk or hike, especially on trails in the mountains, because you get that cool, crisp mountain air hitting you in the face, along with all the scenic views of the trees and different changing colors of leaves. You wouldn't want to leave there. But let's just see what happens to this person, shall we?
I set out early on a Saturday morning, my backpack filled with essentials: food, water, a map, and my trusty flashlight. The trail was beautiful, the leaves crunching under my boots as I walked. The air was cool, and the forest was alive with the sounds of birds and rustling leaves. I felt at peace, enjoying the solitude and the connection with nature. As the day wore on, I reached a spot I had planned to camp for the night. It was a small clearing surrounded by tall trees, with a fire pit in the center. I set up my tent, gathered some firewood, and settled in for the evening. I cooked a simple meal over the fire, the smell of roasted vegetables and grilled chicken filling the air. It was a perfect evening, the kind that makes you forget all your worries.
That sounds like a good meal to have while camping. Grilled chicken. Yum. Over a campfire, too. I know that'll taste good. One thing about camping that scares me is staying over at night, because you never know who or what will come out of the woods just to see what you're doing.
As the sun began to set, I sat by the fire, enjoying the warmth and the peacefulness of the forest. The sky turned shades of pink and orange, and the stars began to twinkle overhead. I was completely relaxed, lost in the beauty of the moment. But then, just as darkness fell, I heard it, a faint sound in the distance, almost like a baby crying. I paused, straining to listen, but the sound stopped. I shook my head, convincing myself it was just an animal or the wind. I went back to tending the fire, trying to ignore the unease that had settled over me. A few minutes later, the crying started again, louder this time. It was unmistakable, the sound of a baby wailing in distress. My heart began to race. What was a baby doing out here, in the middle of the woods? I grabbed my flashlight and stood up, my mind racing with possibilities. Hello? I called out, my voice echoing through the trees. Is anyone there?
I wouldn't do that. I know it sounds creepy if you hear a baby crying, because people would think they should go and try to investigate and see if they can help a baby in distress. But when you get to the source of the sound and you don't see no baby there, then you know it's not a kid making a noise. So I guarantee you that it's probably someone imitating a baby crying, or some ghostly entity making that noise. But I don't know. I don't want to jump ahead. with any conclusions just yet, so let's just continue and find out what happens next.
There was no response, just the eerie silence of the forest. I debated whether to investigate or stay by the safety of my fire. The crying continued, growing more desperate. I couldn't just ignore it. I had to find out what was going on. I grabbed my flashlight and started walking toward the sound, my heart pounding in my chest. The forest was dark, the trees casting long shadows in the moonlight. The crying seemed to be coming from deeper in the woods, off the main trail. I pushed through the underbrush, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. As I walked, the crying grew louder and more insistent. It sounded so real, so human. I called out again, hoping for a response, but there was nothing. Just the sound of the baby crying and the crunch of leaves under my boots. After what felt like an eternity, I stumbled upon an old, abandoned cabin. It was small and dilapidated, the windows broken and the door hanging off its hinges. The crying was coming from inside. I hesitated, my hand shaking as I reached for the door. I pushed it open, the hinges creaking loudly in the silence. The cabin was dark and musty, filled with the smell of decay. My flashlight revealed a small room with broken furniture and debris scattered across the floor. The crying stopped abruptly as I stepped inside, replaced by an oppressive silence. My heart raced as I scanned the room, searching for any sign of the baby.
Yeah, that'd be kind of scary right there. You don't hear the sound anymore. It's like a good sign for you to turn around and run, because I still think it ain't no baby there.
There was nothing, just an empty, abandoned cabin in the middle of the woods. I felt a chill run down my spine. Something wasn't right. I turned to leave, but then I saw it, a small, dirty crib in the corner of the room. My flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. I approached the crib, my breath catching in my throat. Inside, there was an old, tattered blanket, but no baby. I felt a wave of relief, followed by a surge of fear. What was going on? Who had left the crib here, and why was there the sound of a baby crying? I backed away, my mind racing. I needed to get out of there. I turned and hurried back to the door, but as I reached it, I heard the crying again, louder and more insistent. It was coming from right behind me. I spun around, my flashlight shaking in my hand. There was no one there, just the empty cabin and the sound of a baby crying, echoing in my ears.
It's probably a demonic ghost playing tricks with you, so get out of there now before it follows you back to your camp.
I felt a wave of panic. I had to get out of there. I ran out of the cabin and back into the woods, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly as I sprinted through the trees. The crying followed me, growing louder and more desperate. It seemed to echo through the forest, coming from all directions. I stumbled over roots and branches, my heart pounding in my chest. I could see the glow of my campfire in the distance, and I pushed myself to run faster. I burst into the clearing, gasping for breath. The crying stopped abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. I collapsed by the fire, trying to calm my racing heart. I looked around, but there was no sign of anyone. Just the dark, silent forest and the glow of the fire. I stayed by the fire all night, too scared to go back into the woods. Every rustle of leaves, every crack of a branch sent a jolt of fear through me. I kept my flashlight and a knife close, my eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. As the first light of dawn broke through the trees, I quickly packed up my things and left the campsite. I didn't stop until I reached my car, my heart still pounding in my chest. I drove home, my mind racing with the events of the night. I never found out what caused the crying or who left the crib in that cabin. The experience left me shaken, and I haven't returned to that part of the trail since. The memory of that night, the sound of the crying baby, still haunts me. I've tried to rationalize it, to tell myself it was just an animal or a trick of the wind, but deep down, I know something was very wrong.
You know, he did bring up a good point. There's some animals out there that do make a crying noise that sounds like a baby in distress. But if he didn't see no fox or any other animal in that cabin making that noise, then automatically it ain't an animal. It was probably some specter that he couldn't see with his own eyes making that noise. But I would have been doing the same thing he would have done, packed up and leave. Because I don't know if I can handle another night in the woods and that happening again. I'm just glad he did not get attacked while camping there.
Camping has always been my escape from the hustle and bustle of everyday life.
Sure.
There's something about the tranquility of the woods that calms my mind and rejuvenates my spirit. Last summer, I decided to camp at a remote site in the woods near my house, a place I'd visited many times before. But this trip turned out to be anything but relaxing. It became a night of terror that I still can't fully explain. I set out on a Friday afternoon, my backpack loaded with gear and supplies. The sun was shining, and the forest was alive. I followed a familiar trail to my favorite campsite, a small clearing surrounded by tall pines, with a stream nearby. It was the perfect spot, secluded and peaceful. After setting up my tent and gathering firewood, I settled in for the evening. I cooked a simple dinner over the campfire, the smell of grilled sausages and vegetables filling the air. As the sun began to set, I sat by the fire, enjoying the warmth and the beauty of the night sky. As the stars came out, I heard a rustling in the bushes nearby. At first, I thought it was just an animal, but the sound continued, growing louder and more insistent. I stood up, my flashlight in hand, and walked toward the noise. That's when I found it, an old walkie-talkie, partially buried in the dirt.
Okay, first of all, I agree with you said earlier that something about walking in the woods is kind of tranquil and peaceful. But if you discover an old walkie talkie buried in the dirt, that's not a coincidence. There's someone else in the woods, they're probably spying on you. And that will make the whole experience of camping in the woods terrifying.
I picked it up, wiping off the dirt. It looked ancient, the kind of device you'd see in old movies. I turned it on, but there was only static. Curious, I brought it back to the campfire and sat down, turning the dials and adjusting the frequency. After a few moments, I heard a faint voice through the static. Help, please help. My heart skipped a beat. The voice was weak, barely audible, but it was clear enough to send chills down my spine. I tried to respond, pressing the button on the walkie-talkie. Hello? Who is this? Where are you? There was no answer, just more static. I repeated my question, but the only response was a series of crackling noises.
I wouldn't have not picked up that walkie talkie because you never know, it might have been a trap to lure somebody to you. But yeah, that would be scary just to hear somebody say, help me, but then they don't respond back with your questions answered. Oh boy, this ain't good.
I felt a surge of fear and confusion. Who was on the other end of the walkie-talkie, and why were they asking for help? I tried to convince myself it was just a prank, but the desperation in the voice felt too real. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was in trouble. I decided to keep the walkie-talkie on, hoping to hear more. The night grew darker, and the forest seemed to close in around me. The fire crackled, casting eerie shadows on the trees. I sat by the fire, my eyes scanning the darkness, the walkie-talkie clutched in my hand. Suddenly, it crackled to life again. Please, help me. I'm lost. The voice was clearer this time, a young woman's voice filled with fear. My heart raced as I pressed the button. Where are you? Can you hear me? The static returned, louder and more chaotic. I felt a wave of frustration and fear. I stood up, shining my flashlight into the trees, searching for any sign of movement. Hello? Can you hear me? Where are you? There was a long pause, and then the voice returned, more desperate than before. They're coming. Please, help me. They're coming. The walkie-talkie went silent. My mind raced with fear and questions. Who is she? Who are they? I felt a surge of protectiveness, a need to find and help this person. I grabbed my flashlight and walked toward the edge of the clearing, my heart pounding in my chest. Stay calm, I told myself. It's just a prank. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The fear in her voice was too real.
Yeah, I don't think it was a prank because if it was, somebody would have jumped out and say, "Gotcha, we're just messing with you, man." So this is literally someone trying to reach for help. They probably got kidnapped by whoever they're talking about on the walkie-talkie returning back. So this person needs to hurry up and find them and get out of there quick before he gets involved with whatever they're doing out there.
I took a deep breath and continued into the woods, the walkie-talkie in one hand and my flashlight in the other. The forest was dark and silent. The only sound was the crunch of leaves under my boots. I called out into the night, hoping for a response, but there was nothing. Just the oppressive silence and the feeling of being watched. I walked deeper into the woods, my fear growing with each step. After what felt like hours, I heard it again, the faint sound of crying, coming from somewhere up ahead. I followed the sound. The crying grew louder, more desperate, leading me to a small clearing. In the center of the clearing was an old, abandoned campsite. The tent was torn, and the fire pit was cold and filled with ashes. My heart pounded as I scanned the area, looking for any sign of the woman. Hello? Are you here? The crying stopped abruptly, replaced by a chilling silence. I took a step forward, my flashlight illuminating the torn tent. Inside, there was nothing but a few scattered belongings, an old sleeping bag, a backpack, and a book. As I approached the tent, the walkie-talkie crackled to life again. Help me, they're here. The voice was right behind me. I spun around, shining my flashlight into the trees, but there was no one there. Just the dark, empty forest. I felt a surge of panic. I needed to get out of there. I turned and ran back toward my campsite, the walkie-talkie still clutched in my hand. The static grew louder, and I could hear faint whispers, as if multiple voices were speaking at once. My heart raced as I stumbled through the underbrush, desperate to reach the safety of my fire. When I finally burst into my campsite, I collapsed by the fire, gasping for breath. The walkie-talkie fell silent, the static fading away. I looked around, my flashlight beam dancing across the trees, but there was no sign of anyone. I stayed up all night, the fire burning brightly, my eyes scanning the darkness. I kept the walkie-talkie close, my mind racing with fear and confusion. The haunting whispers from the walkie-talkie echoed in my ears, making it impossible to think clearly. As the first light of dawn broke through the trees, I quickly packed up my things, feeling a profound sense of urgency to leave. I didn't bother with breakfast or even dousing the fire properly. I just needed to get out of those woods. My hands were trembling as I stuffed my gear into my backpack, my eyes darting around the campsite, half expecting to see a shadowy figure lurking in the trees. The drive home was a blur. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, convinced I would see something or someone following me. My heart didn't stop pounding until I was safely inside my house, the door locked securely behind me. The walkie-talkie was still clutched in my hand, and I couldn't bring myself to turn it on again. I shoved it into a drawer, hoping to forget about it, but the fear lingered. I never found out who the woman was or what happened to her. The experience left me shaking, and I haven't been back to that campsite since.
I would be wondering why in the world he brought that walkie-talkie back to his house, but it's better than leaving it out there like junk being left behind. So my guess is there was nobody actually there. It was probably the ghost of somebody that was trying to contact for help like they did when they were alive, but it was too late. I would have been doing some research on the area just to see if anybody died in that area. But I'm glad that he didn't have no run in with no bad people and he packed up his stuff and left.
The memory of her voice, filled with desperation and fear, still haunts me. Hiking has always been a favorite pastime of mine, a way to escape the stress of daily life and connect with nature. One autumn weekend, my friends and I decided to explore a trail we hadn't visited before, a remote area known for its old watchtower. It was a crisp Saturday morning when we set out, the air filled with the earthy scent of fallen leaves. My friends, Matt, Lisa, and Jake, were in high spirits, laughing and joking as we hiked. The trail was beautiful, winding through dense forests and up steep hills. We were eager to reach the watchtower, an old structure rumored to offer stunning views of the surrounding landscape. As we walked, the conversation flowed easily. We talked about school, our weekend plans, and the latest movies we had seen. The hike was challenging, but we enjoyed the physical exertion and the beauty of the trail. After a couple of hours, we reached a clearing and saw it, the watchtower, standing tall and imposing against the clear blue sky.
You know, that would be amazing to find out in the middle of the woods. There's an old watchtower. Then you get to see animals running around peacefully, and you get a clear view of the scenery.
The watchtower was old, its wooden beams weathered and creaking. It had clearly been abandoned for years, but it still stood strong. We decided to climb to the top and take in the view. The rickety stairs groaned under our weight, but we made it to the top without incident. The view was breathtaking. The forest stretched out before us, a sea of red, orange, and yellow leaves. We could see for miles, the rolling hills and distant mountains creating a stunning panorama. We spent some time taking photos and enjoying the scenery, feeling on top of the world. As the afternoon wore on, we decided to head back down and find a spot to set up camp. We found a perfect site near a small stream, the sound of running water adding to the peaceful ambience. We pitched our tents, gathered firewood, and soon had a roaring campfire going. We cooked dinner over the fire, the smell of grilled sausages and marshmallows filling the air. After dinner, we sat around the fire, telling stories and playing games. The sky grew darker, and the stars began to twinkle overhead. It was a perfect night, the kind of night that makes you feel alive and connected to the world. As we sat there, enjoying the warmth of the fire, I noticed something strange. A flicker of movement at the edge of the clearing caught my eye. I squinted into the darkness, but saw nothing. I shrugged it off, thinking it was just an animal. But then it happened again. A shadowy figure, just at the edge of the firelight, moving quickly and silently. I felt a chill run down my spine. Did you guys see that? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. See what? Matt replied, looking around. I thought I saw something. Over there, I said, pointing toward the trees. Probably just a deer or something, Jake said, dismissively. We went back to our conversation, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched.
I wouldn't be shaking it either. His friends need to be taking this seriously. If he said he saw something, I would believe him. I'll shine a flashlight in that area, and if it's somebody that's not supposed to be there, then you better start running.
The fire crackled, and the night grew colder. The shadows seemed to stretch and shift, creating eerie shapes at the edge of the clearing. As the night wore on, the unease grew. We started hearing strange noises, soft whispers, and distant footsteps. Lisa looked visibly shaken, her eyes darting around the dark forest. Maybe we should turn in, she suggested, her voice trembling slightly. We agreed and put out the fire, retreating to the safety of our tents. I lay in my sleeping bag, listening to the sounds of the forest. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig made my heart race. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there, watching us. I must have fallen asleep at some point because I was jolted awake by a loud noise. I sat up, my heart pounding in my chest. I heard whispers, closer this time, and the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching our campsite. I grabbed my flashlight and unzipped the tent, stepping out into the cold night air. The beam of my flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing nothing. The campsite was empty, the tent still and silent. But the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. Guys, wake up, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. Matt, Lisa, and Jake emerged from their tents, looking groggy and confused. What's going on? Matt asked, rubbing his eyes. I heard something, I said, scanning the trees with my flashlight. Footsteps and whispers. We stood there, huddled together, the fear palpable. The forest was silent, the only sound was our heavy breathing. Just as we were about to dismiss it as our imaginations, we saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the clearing, watching us. It was tall and shadowy, its features obscured by the darkness. My heart pounded as we stared at it, frozen in fear. The figure didn't move, just stood there, its presence menacing and unsettling. Let's get out of here, Jake whispered, his voice filled with panic. We quickly packed up our gear, our hands shaking. The figure remained at the edge of the clearing, never moving, never speaking.
I'm surprised it didn't move towards him, but thank God it did it. But yeah, I'll be terrified too if I saw something gigantic and humanoid looking like this. I'll be agreeing with him. Yes, pack up. Let's get out of here before this thing decides to do something to us.
As we hurriedly put out the remnants of the fire and grabbed our backpacks, the tension was unbearable. We started down the trail, the figure still watching us. The darkness seemed to close in around us, the forest becoming a maze of shadows and fear. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves made us jump. We moved as quickly as we could, desperate to put distance between us and whatever was lurking in the woods. As we neared the watchtower, the feeling of being watched intensified. We glanced back and saw the figure again, following us at a distance. It seemed to glide through the trees, its movements smooth and silent. Panic set in, and we broke into a run, our breath coming in short, ragged gasps. The old watchtower loomed ahead, a silhouette against the night sky. We didn't stop until we reached the clearing at the base of the tower, our hearts pounding in our chests. We turned to face the trail, but the figure was gone. The forest was silent, the shadows still. We stood there, catching our breath, the fear slowly subsiding. What the hell was that? Lisa asked, her voice shaking. I don't know, I replied, still scanning the darkness. But I don't think we should stick around to find out.
You got that right. Catch your breaths, put yourself back together mentally, and run back to your vehicles and get back home. Because if you stay around, that creature might just jump out of the woods to run and scare the crap out of you even more. You need to go now.
We decided to wait until dawn before continuing back to the car.
Oh, come on.
The watchtower felt like the safest place, a vantage point where we could keep an eye on our surroundings.
That is true. The watchtower might be a safe place, but I wouldn't keep standing there until daylight shows. But keep your eyes and ears focused on anything that sounds like it's coming near you.
We climbed to the top, huddling together for warmth and comfort. The night passed slowly, every minute stretching into an eternity. We took turns keeping watch, our eyes scanning the dark forest below. As the first light of dawn broke through the trees, the sense of dread began to lift. The forest, bathed in the soft light of morning, seemed less menacing. We made our way back to the trailhead, the events of the night still fresh in our minds. We didn't speak much, each of us lost in our own thoughts. When we finally reached the car, we breathed a collective sigh of relief. I haven't been back to that watchtower since. The memory of that shadowy figure, watching us from the edge of the clearing, still haunts me.
It was a smart idea to hunker in together in that watchtower, and they each take turns while everybody else slept, just to make sure that thing don't show up again. But thankfully, when the light showed, they were able to get out of there. But that would be a scary thing to see for sure. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Midnight Nightmare content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Quarter channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and that's wrapping. And that's day on.